After what Memento did yesterday, I'm not surprised.
So Camille likely to be somewhere on the ban list as well. We've seen a couple of bans thrown out towards Malzahar. Rise has also been high on the priority
We got to
list.
get into this too. This is going to be one of the last games we will see with 6 bans here in competitive, since we are still on patch 6.24. Last 2 series today, we'll be seeing the 6-ban system.
And so moving forward into next week, that is where 7.1 will be kicking off the first week of the LCS. More bans, more excitement. But for today, we still need to figure out which 2 teams will be making their way into the Challenger Series. And to do that, we're going to be doing it on 6.24. So nothing too standout-ish. The Lee Sin ban, just a lot of high-priority junglers. In fact, all of the high-priority junglers are being taken off the board right now.
Who are we falling down to? I mean, when do we get into like Vi territory?
Well, I mean, that's the question. You know, there are we're yet to see a Vi come out throughout the Challenger Series. A lot of, I mean, these 3 junglers have really been the staple for what we've been seeing so far. We did see a bit of Camille jungle come out from a few of the teams, but I mean, we even saw Camille mid, we saw Aurelia mid.
Dude, we saw Aatrox top. I mean, all bets are off at this point.
We saw Mordekaiser, so that's it. No more junglers are now available.
Okay, the Camille's gone.
They're all gone.
All right, let's find out. Poppy ban, okay, so this is actually something that's not all that surprising either. It's something we saw Rune playing quite a lot of, especially in the early stages of the first couple days of the CSQ.
Yeah, as well as that, I'm just looking at a couple of things that are still open right now. The Rise is still available. Syndra is still up, given that this is 6.24.
Still broken.
Yeah, both. Yeah. I mean, I would have used a slightly, you know, more
eloquent term.
Yes, but broken also is adequate. Interesting last ban coming out from Nerv.
Oh, the Jace banned away. All right, so that's going to be a really quick pickup of the Zyra, though, for D-Lord. So we'll see what they want to pair with that. A lot of long-range poke, of course, still can be dealt with. You've seen the Misfortune support still crops up every now and again.
Going for a very aggressive support down in the bottom, and you could pair that with an Ashe, do something that the AD carry has been rising. Well, I say rising, has been very strong for quite a long time now. You can also set up a really effective kill lane with the Jhin down in the bottom lane. So right now, Team Kinguin are setting themselves up for a lot of options, and they're not giving too much away because Zyra is really the strongest support. Now, you could go for Misfortune, perhaps, depending on whether or not it is Nerv's repertoire. But I feel like trying to get yourself a jungler right now would be pretty strong. So many junglers have been the board. Perhaps it's that because so many have been taken off, like there is no like next S tier. But it looks like right now the mid lane is going to be the focus for them.
Yeah, Suno's actually done quite a lot of work on that Syndra in the past, and will have to be picking it back up once again. And of course, the Nami locked in for cost, so they've already opted for that as a support. We'll see what Kinguin answer with. Katarina has been a champion that has been picked up a number of times. I know that you have very strong opinions on her.
I love the champion. She is actually my favorite champion, even though I can't play her at all.
Well, neither can I, as we found in our little five-game match. But yeah, that's in the past. Let's not worry about it.
I mean, my biggest concern for Katarina is that her laning phase in the early levels especially is still pretty weak, but it seems that a lot of the challenger teams still put a lot of value on it. She's definitely got a lot more kill pressure than she used to in the early stages of play, but it's definitely abusable, and especially into someone like a Syndra who, as you rightly said on this patch, is a little bit overtuned. Katarina can struggle to get through the laning phase.
And they're not going to opt into it right now. Of course, it can still be picked up later on, but they take a jungler. It's Nocturne. It's something we see Memento have success on earlier in this tournament, and the Ashe, as you suggested, to pair with the Zyra. A lot of poke here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually a really big fan of the Nocturne. He's, funnily enough, another champion that I used to main, like, but...
They're doing this for you, Vedius.
I used to put him mid lane, though, rather than in the jungle, but still, he has very good jungle clear. The pick potential that you can already see being built up for Team Kinguin is very strong. They have a lot of potency to find those opportunities later on into the game, especially against a low mobility mid laner like Syndra. You can really punish her come the mid game where when the map starts to open up.
But that will be a little bit of time before it happens as the timer ticks down on Nerv's side. They're debating which AD carry they want to lock in here. It looks like it may be the Ezreal for Achu, and they switch over to the Kha'Zix at the last second. So we have a pair of very aggressive junglers being locked in here.
Now, Memento has brought out the Kha'Zix during the qualifiers, and he has had a pretty solid performance on it. The clear is not quite as fast as the knock. Interesting that they've decided to go for the Nami Ezreal bot lane. It's fairly safe, but in terms of early pushing, it's fairly weak. So you're going to get pushed underneath the turret pretty early on. I mean, they've got a bit of a weird composition. Definitely, you have a lot of pressure in the mid lane. But in terms of, they really need a tank now. They just need a tank. They need some kind of front line. With Maokai being taken off the board, you have to then question like what is left available. You could go for potentially the Nautilus up in the top lane. We have seen a bit of Shen come out during this tournament as well. But I just feel like Nerv right now, they have no reliable engage tool and they have no proper front line. So it'd be nice to have some kind of combination of that coming out from them. But Team Kinguin, I think they have an incredibly well-rounded incredibly well-rounded composition. They have a solid front line. They have multiple engage tools. They have good scaling. They have strong laning phases.
Right.
And I mean, like, I feel like just based off of what we've seen so far, Team Kinguin have come out ahead with the superior draft.
Which was really curious because you look at Nerv being the only undefeated team in this tournament now, going into the final day and this finals to try and qualify for the Challenger Series. You would think that they were going to be the ones that were looking more prepared for the situation, but Team Kinguin seem to have kind of gotten their number here, and with the Rise locked in as well, this is going to be a fairly solid scaling team. I'm excited to see, you know, if they're able to execute it well. Top lane, of course, is going to be a wet noodle fight, but you know, that's to be expected. It's a tank meta.
Yeah, it is somewhat to be expected, and I think that the Nautilus makes more sense because he can act as a, not the most reliable engage tool, but he has ways to kick off the fights. You know, they have ways to actually force those engages if they want. And I think that for Nerv, a lot of this is going to be dictated during the laning phase, in particular the mid lane. I feel that that's the best place to try and get the snowball going. You have a lot of kill pressure with the Kha'Zix and Syndra, and it's very difficult for someone like a Nocturne to be able to match that sort of early pressure. It's not that he's necessarily weak, but he's not necessarily the strongest coming. It's really when he hits that level 6 mark that he can start to have more of an impact. So I think the early laning phase is really what Nerv need to try and take advantage of. But I think it's going to be difficult when you look at how many strong pushing lanes you have for the side of Team Kinguin.
Well, you heard you guys heard what we thought, and me horribly butchering it. But what do you think? Hop on Twitter, hashtag TKWin if you think Team Kinguin is going to take game number 1, or hashtag NRVWin if you think Nerv has got their number in this game. At LL Esports is the place. We're hopping into game. We're hopping on the Rift. This is to see who is going to make it into the 2017 Spring Challenger Series. It's Team Kinguin, and of course on the other side, it's Nerv.
And remember, ladies and gentlemen, it's a best of 5. So there are many opportunities to fight your way back into the game or into the series later on. So even if you had a poor game 1, there are things that you can rectify. It's just about maintaining your mental composure, because this is something that often we've discussed in the past, when it especially comes to challenger teams, as to whether or not they can maintain their level throughout a long series like this, because often in these qualifiers and in amateur tournaments, trying to get into a lot of tournaments of things like best of 1s, best of 2s, maybe at most best of 3, but when you're playing such an elongated series and you almost get like a meta game develop of just the series, it's a very different way of playing. It's a very different perspective that a lot of these amateur teams may not have experience in.
Well, even the high-level teams, and I'm talking LCS all the way up to Worlds, you see series that get drawn out and turn all the way back into a 5-game reverse sweep more often than maybe you could expect, just because it does become this micro meta game that the slightest changes can turn it on a dime for you. So we'll see how these two teams handle it. Ice Beasto up in the top side, hanging out in plain sight as Ruin is spying him from the bushes. But apart from that, it is the line of scrimmage, standard stuff as we look to get loaded onto the Rift here.
So it looks like, for the time being, nothing too cheesy coming out. I'm just trying to keep an eye on some of the vision that's coming out from both these teams. It doesn't look like there's anything too aggressive. Tabasco, sorry, actually moving towards the bottom half of the map. So it looks like he will start on his red. And he's going to get a bit of a pull from Wallite. So that means that he could look to try and match Kha'Zix, who he's expecting to gank towards the mid lane. So I wouldn't be too surprised if he starts on his red, clears the bottom half, gets some vision around the river so that his bot lane can continue to play aggressively. Because when you do have Ashe Zyra going up against a Nami Ezreal, you have the push power. But given that they have decided to give a pull, they're going to fall back a little bit in terms of getting that early level 2.
Yeah, plain sight, obviously, with Woolite disappearing for a moment. Nerv know that this is exactly what's happened, so you can see Memento getting a free pass at the blue buff in the top side, but Tabasco should be doing the same thing. Looks like if he's going through, unless he wants to go for like a really crazy early gank, I doubt that. It's not really a Nocturne thing.
Really interesting shift from Memento, the fact that he's actually started on his red, instantly gone to take away Tabasco's blue. Notice that he's already got vision on the outside of the blue buff, so we can check to see if that's coming out. But they must have somehow, so the reason why they knew that Tabasco was starting on the bottom side is because of the Ashe going up to give him the pull. So he knew that he was safe to go and steal away that camp. He needs to be a little bit aware of the fact that Tabasco has just not bothered with the bottom half of his jungle and has instantly moved up to the top. But I think that he's going to get away with that very clean. Now hit the level 3 mark, and he should be able to get a clean 3 buff.
Uh-oh. Tabasco's actually heading up here, and you can see Memento hanging around. So now he knows that there's no jungle camps left to him, and he's spotted, of course, on this ward as he goes through. Looked for a moment like Memento might be going for, you know, maybe a level 3 up in the top side, but it's pretty hard to take down a Maokai even that early levels. And as we shift our attention back towards the bottom side, you can see Achu is actually getting the better of the farm game, but it's really just because Woolite was a bit late to the party.
So a lot of this early pressure that's coming out from Nerv is thanks to the fact that the fact that Woolite went to go and get that pull over to Tabasco, and because of that, a lot of pressure is being exerted onto Woolite and D-Lord. But now that they've managed to get themselves level 3, now that they're feeling a little bit more confident in the lane, you can see that Achu and Cass are really struggling against this pressure and aggression that's coming out from Team Kinguin. So this is what I expect the laning phase to be more of. It was a very good start for Nerv, and the fact that they were able to get those early levels and not suffer from the early level 2 from the Zyra Ashe is really good for them. But the fact that Tabasco has lost his blue buff is actually really going to hurt him, because Nocturne is actually pretty mana intensive during the early game. His Dustbringer is something like 70 to 80 mana at level 1, and you only have a fairly small mana pool. So it can become a little bit difficult, and that will delay his clear. And you can already see Memento hitting that level 4 mark is going to be absolutely massive for him if he can try and take advantage of it somewhere on the map.
Yeah, it's big for him, as he's going to be able to hop over into his wolf camp to clear that one away. You can see Tabasco is poking his nose around to see if he can steal a camp off himself. Ruin, however, is going to be caught between them if Tabasco decides to go in. It doesn't look like the case, as he's a little bit more hungry for camps, trying to keep up on that XP. And this is so great for Memento and Nerv right now, if they can control the tempo in the jungle.
Tabasco is going to get the flank onto Ruin, and this is going to be the first gank.
Twisted advance. Tabasco just waits, bides his time as they get the sapling, force the flash, the fear, and they're going for him. He's going to get the hook back to tower. Just able to survive. Trail of spooks behind him.
So, really good movement coming in from Tabasco. Whether or not he intentionally planned for things to work out the way they did, I'm not entirely sure, but he's able to make it work. Moving into the enemy jungle very early on, avoids all of the vision that was coming out from Ruin, is able to get the flank, but we have more action in the bottom lane.
Bubble on as Koss was taken a little bit low. Achu now on the chase onto Daylord. He gets another shot, 2, 3, one more auto in the heel. Comes in to save his life. Woolite hitting that F pretty quickly.
Team Kinguin playing a little bit too aggressively into a minion wave that's heading towards them, but look at Achu. He has no mana left. Woolite is playing hyper-aggressive.
Still baiting, but Koss is a little bit low. The bubble doesn't land. Memento is a little bit occupied on Krugs, but now he's going to have to hop in. Daylord, one auto, first blood, looking for Woolite, flashes out under tower, and that'll be all.
Notice that Team Kinguin were moving aggressively in the bottom lane. They felt like they could go back towards the trade because Achu had no mana left. But then all of a sudden they decided to back off because they realized that Nerv was still playing aggressively. That gave them some indication that Memento was nearby, but it was too little too late. He comes in from the side, he gets himself first blood, and this is going to be massive for Memento moving forward.
When you've already got a jungle champion that can get involved in the lanes faster than your opposing team, and you get ahead by getting a 3-buff start, it's just absolutely brilliant from Memento. Woolite has not been able to back, and Memento is still stopping him from doing anything here. He's going to lose out on so much farm that's pushing into the tower.
This is really good early pressure from Memento. He realizes he already has an experienced lead. He realizes that it doesn't matter if I'm not clearing my jungle camps because I'm forcing Woolite to lose a lot of farm, a lot of experience to the turret. He's actually allowed Achu to go back and buy before Woolite is even going to get an opportunity to. So just further and further advantages going in the favor of Nerv.
Not only that, they're holding both their flashes in the bottom side. You can look at the screen, you can see that Team Kinguin's bot lane has completely burned all of their summoners for a little while. Let's go ahead and take a look back at that gank again.
So you can see that they started playing aggressively because they thought that they would be able to win out on the 2 versus 2, but the fact that Nerv were turning around with aggressive actions, they realized something must be off, Memento must be nearby, but they just realized a little bit too late. He jumps in from the side and is able to get himself the first kill. So good start from the side of Nerv. We were a little bit worried about the compositions, especially when you looked at the early push with Ryze pushing hard in the mid lane. Maokai, I mean, the top lane's really going to go back and forth, but especially against a Zyra Ashe, you should expect that to be the pushing lane. And it all just stems back to that early pull that Woolite gave his jungler. And because of that, Achu and Cass were able to get a foothold in the laning phase, and now they've gotten themselves a pretty significant lead.
Yeah, no kidding. 65 to 43 on the CS, and Ezreal can just keep on stacking his tier up. Quick as you like, Memento back in his own jungle this time. We saw a lot of vision coverage in this river earlier on. Now you can see how it's shifted a bit closer to that mid lane, which has been a relatively quiet affair. Sebix and Suno have actually not really gone at each other's throats too heavily, and it's been a very even farm game, but that does seem like the way Sebix would want it, being on a tier champion like Ryze.
I mean, for a Ryze, you just want to spend a lot of the early game farming and pushing the Syndra underneath the turret. Syndra's early wave clear is decent, but when you compare it to Ryze and his ability to just flux an entire wave and just clear it, it's pretty difficult to deal with. But speaking of mid laners, it looks like the Suno moving to the bottom half of the map, and it's nice to see that Nerv have realized that the bottom lane is really the pain point, rather than trying to focus ganks onto the mid, which is a little bit of what we were talking about earlier on. They've just decided, you know what, we've gotten this advantage early on in the bottom lane, let's just try and snowball this advantage as much as we can, and they should be able to pick up this early Drake, which is going to benefit them a lot during this early lane.
Yep, Ocean Drake secure, that gives them the out of combat regeneration. Memento a little low on mana, but he's able to clear Scuttle Crab with his claws, no problem. Suno is going to be able to defend his ward in that river brush. And back to the top lane, Ruin and Ice Beasto. Well, we said it was a wet noodle fight, and that's what it's going to be for a while. Despite Ruin nearly going down very early, that could have been the first blood, but Flash and a hook saved his life, but he's still a little bit behind on the farm. Doesn't mean much when they just keep trading back and forth.
I like the build path coming out from Ruin, going for an early Dark Seal, also with a Doran's Ring. Usually a type of build that you'd see from mid laners. But
if you never die, you don't lose your stacks.
I mean, that is true. You would expect both of them to be running Courage of the Colossus, and that does mean that dying does become a difficult thing to do. But you also need those assists and kills, and if you're just going to be spending all your time in the top lane, I don't know how often that is, but Woolite.
Oh, Woolite. Oh no, we've seen it before! A Chew! Polishes him off, Memento comes out from the shadows, sends another Q flying, flashes, autos, doesn't matter through the exhaust, and that is 2 quick kills in the bottom lane.
Woolite, you have your heal up, you decide to hold on to it, you thought that you were able to escape from the bubble, and unfortunately it just wasn't enough. This is going to be another 2 kills going in the favor of Nerv down in the bottom lane. They are snowballing this lane out of control, and this is exactly what Nerv wanted. I was a little bit hesitant when they picked up the Ezreal, picked up the Nami, but they've been able to make it work. They've gotten themselves a very solid lead, nearly 2,000 gold at the 10-minute mark. And now we're starting to see why this team was so dominant during the qualifiers. But have a look at this, Woolite. I mean, there's nothing wrong with them playing this aggressively, but Woolite, he should have used his heal there to get the bonus movement speed to move out of the way. And unfortunately, he just wasn't able to dodge it. Ends up losing his life. The Lord even uses his exhaust to try and keep himself alive. And yes, he gets a flash out of Memento, but Memento gets himself a kill. And that's a 2-0-0 Kha'Zix. And we haven't seen anything from Tabasco yet.
No, I mean, he's been set a little far behind just from the early jungle start we were talking about. But even so, you would think at this point he's at level 7. He does have his ultimate available to him. He has not been in position to give these counter ganks with the attention that Nerv is paying to their bottom side. You would think that that would be his next destination.
I mean, like, the bot lane would be the best place for him to gank, given that you have the Ash Arrow for an engage tool, you also have the Zyra roots. If they manage to land, you set up for an easy gank, but then the Darkness itself is just a great way to set up for these plays. Unfortunately, in that situation, Nerv was the ones that pushed under the turret, and again, Nerv are going to be the ones underneath the turret. You can see Tabasco setting up for a type of gank, maybe even a counter gank in the event that Memento comes in for another flank. But for the time being, it's just a matter of Team Kinguin doing what they can to keep the pressure on, and Tabasco can't really find any opportunities because he won't be able to gank the mid lane. Top lane, there's not really much point in him going there, and so Tabasco's kind of limited in his options.
Yeah, but Memento's the one who keeps time and time again moving down here. You can see Woolite at half his health right now with a sneaky Kha'Zix around the side, so Memento is just smelling blood here. But for the moment, even though it's being pushed in, Achu and Kasa are having no trouble whatsoever. A massive farm advantage, 30 CS up, and he just keeps on stacking that Muramana, waiting to build it up. Memento's going to get some ward clearing out of here, but it's such a big advantage for Nerv. They've got a 2K gold edge at 12 minutes in.
The question is, though, what are they now going to do with it? Because if they just keep things going the way they are, they're eventually going to get outscaled. As the Nara lands on the cast.
Oh, and there's the paranoia. Woolite's going to pick himself up a kill. Achu is by himself, but a pair of teleports coming in. Ruin comes forward, and he's going to be able to sink it, but it's Woolite already out of harm's way. Ice Beasto holding the line, and all of a sudden, it's a party in the bot lane, but nobody wants to tango.
So this is the gank that we were talking about. This is the sort of setup that we wanted to see happen from Team Kinguin. They're able to get the pick onto Cast as he moves to try and get some vision down. There was no way he could react to the flank coming in from Tabasco, and there was no way for Achu to provide any kind of support. Now Nerv, they tried to respond with a four-man bottom lane, but very good disengage coming out from the Zyra ultimate enabled them to break free from that setup. Now we see a bit of aggression in the mid lane, but with a big minion wave, it's going to be difficult for Suno to try and get anything down into 7.
Yeah, no problem. It really is a surprise that the mid lane has been the quietest affair, especially when you look back on some of the games that Suno has had so far on Syndra in this tournament. You know, big performances against Euronics, against Bobaski. I mean, different caliber of mid laners, to be sure, but still. it's definitely been a very quiet affair, especially up in this top lane as Ice Beasto takes a bit of a pounding, but just pushes him back. That's Ruin's going to be able to back away, no problem now, or just keep pushing the wave if he wants.
So we can have a look at the state of things off the back of that gank now. You can see that Tabasco has completed his jungle item. He's still a little bit behind in terms of gold compared to Memento, but he is ahead in experience. Notice that he has been power farming while Memento has been finding all of these ganking opportunities. And something that we talked about during Champion Select, something that we really do need to track is the scaling of Team Kinguin's composition, because they do have the rise. Everyone knows his ability to be the powerhouse in the late game. Ashe, her ability to kite and her scaling once she gets 2 to 3 items is absolutely ridiculous and will be so strong, especially when it comes to these mid to late game team fights. So Nerv need to keep up the pressure. They realize that they have a good lead now, and they need to find more opportunities to take advantage of it. And this is where we start to question how many engage tools do they actually have? How many opportunities are they going to really find to further this lead that they've already been able to accrue? Because so far, they've just been punishing the mistakes of Kinguin. But how long will it take before Kinguin start making mistakes?
Yeah, I mean, we talked in Champ Select. They definitely seem to have the edge in that regard. And, you know, if your game plan is, hey, let's wait for late game, as long as you don't lose before that happens, it's not a bad idea. So Ruin and Ice Beasto are going to keep pounding each other here, but you can see that Tabasco is already hanging out in this bottom side, just waiting for a chance to hop onto Achu or Koss. You can also see Memento making this move around here. There's another dragon. This one's Infernal, and he's going to start it up. Tabasco throwing the ward down. He knows that this is happening, and pings are flying. Memento's still going to stay on it, though.
Ruin already moving towards the bottom lane. No, he has decided to disengage. I think this is a very risky move from Nerv, but now Tabasco's just going to come in and get it. Zyra and the Rise have priority.
Oh, they're going to be able to steal this one away. Memento's going to try, but the Rune Prison stops it from coming in. It's smited away, and he comes just too late. Tabasco a little bit low. He's got to the weak. No, Tabasco's down, and Suno is able to pick the kill. Sebex gets a return fire, and now he's looking to chase down Koss, puts him in Rune Prison. He's going to have to flash that wall, and Achu now on the run from 3 burns his flash. It ends up being a jungle for jungle trade, but the dragon goes TK's way. And they really want that one for late game.
So close from Tabasco to get out of that situation, but they still are able to get themselves the dragon. They get themselves a kill, and overall this is definitely favorable for the side of Team Kinguin. So you can start to see pressure returning from the blue side. They really want to make sure that that early deficit that they experience is not going to be the deciding factor in this game. Oh my word.
Yeah, Syndra does damage.
Yeah, I just
don't try this at home, ladies and gentlemen. It's patch 6.24.
As well, like, definitely caught me off guard a little bit there, but yeah, I mean, really good stuff. The fact that Memento decided to solo that dragon, I think, was risky entirely because their bottom lane was already being pushed in. Suno has been pushed in throughout this entire game, so it was always going to be difficult for the rest of his team to help collapse. So all Tabasco needed to do was walk up to the Drake. He knew that he would get support from the Lord and Sebex, and that's exactly what we saw. So you notice now, look, just look at the positioning of the lanes. There's a minion wave working towards Suno. He can't come down. The Ezreal and the Nami are already being pushed underneath their turret, and that means it's a 3 versus 1. Memento, he can't do anything to steal away this dragon. He commits to try and get it away, and that just gives Sebex a free kill. Now Tabasco, he came so close, but unfortunately the ultimate still follows you through the darkness, and is able to, and he does end up losing his life. So it's jungler for jungler, but as we mentioned earlier on, the Drake going in favor of Tabasco.
Considering how this jungle matchup really started off, I mean, this is great for Tabasco. He gets himself a dragon. He trades his life, and Memento falls as well. Memento, it seemed like, you almost argue a little bit cocky there, trying to start off the dragon by himself, knowing that his teammates couldn't really come to his aid.
I feel like that he didn't properly assess the situation that he was in, because it's not even anything that's, or should be necessarily surprising when you consider how things have been going. Like, even though Walla and the Lord have been behind, the wave has been fairly consistently pushing towards Nerv's bottom lane. So, yeah, I think it was a bit of oversight on Memento's part, perhaps with the 2-0 lead that he did have at the start. He was feeling pretty confident. If we do get a chance to look at the gold, you'll notice that Memento is still a little bit ahead, even though Tabasco has been able to accrue a pretty significant CS advantage. But still, for the time being, right now, it's much more even than it was. Gold advantage still in the favor of Nerv, but we just have to highlight back to this scaling thing that we've been talking a lot about. The fact that this 2k gold difference has been maintained is demonstrating how difficult it is for Nerv to continue that snowball.
Very true. So as we hit 18 minutes into this game, Nerv has been slowly losing their grip on this early game, and it's kind of fading into obscurity. If Team Kinguin can just keep this up, That Dragon is a massive boon to them the longer this game goes. And here is a big arrow that goes nowhere, but the wave comes on in. Delord looks like to be the targeted choice. Memento and Suno running for their lives as Tabasco is going to claim one. Looking for another. Dodges away from the Cinder damage. Does not want to play ball.
So TK, they punish Nerv for trying to contest the vision around the Dragon. And honestly, I'm not entirely sure why Nerv even wanted to force a fight there, because it's very difficult for them to actually set up the engage. They did have the teleport in from Ruin, but they had no vision to enable him to get that flank teleport down. And the moment that TK saw an opportunity, they fired out the arrow, they tried to land it onto Suno and Memento, who are separated from Achu and Cass, and then they followed it up with the Nocturne ultimate. And this is the sort of pick composition that we were talking about during Champions. Like, if you are caught unawares, it is very easy for Team Kinguin to just collapse onto that single target, and they get themselves another kill, as well as that mid lane turret. And now that 2k gold deficit that Nerv had is starting to dwindle and go in the favor of Team Kinguin.
Yeah, almost back to even at this point, and when you consider the Dragons, it's looking better for Team Kinguin. It does seem like Nerv are just being heedlessly aggressive, a little hasty, seeing their lead running out, and then unfortunately, kind of like self-fulfilling prophecy, giving it away. Ruin looks like he's going to be able to polish off this top tier. You know, for all the action we've only had one turret fall in this game so far. It looks like we're going to double that number soon enough, though.
Movement from Memento and Suna as well to try and contest this blue buff. Ruin, after picking up that turret, this should be a fairly clean take unless... Oh, nice. Smart play from Suno.
Way to secure it.
Can't steal a blue if you can't target it, so pretty good stuff. But yes, that top turret going down will give Nerv a little bit more gold back in their favor, but it's not going to reverse the damage that has already been done. So much of the map is now opened up thanks to that mid lane turret dropping for the side of Nerv. And now Sevex, he's moving in to try and set up a flank, but he is right on top of a ward. So he's just going to have to pick up the vision and be happy with that.
You can see Woolite playing with a lot more confidence here as the True Shot Barrage goes a little bit wide and Sevex just kind of shrugs it off. They're still pushing just like they have been all game, but he's doing a lot more damage now that the Hurricane's been completed. He's still waiting for Achu to finish stacking his Monomune, and he's still sitting on basic boots. So is Woolite, but he's pushing Achu back consistently. And Delord here is not really having any trouble either. Now that Memento can't effectively just set up a tent in that lane, you can see the difference in how it's going.
The thing is, this is kind of what you want to do with the Ashe Zara lane anyway, especially when you compare the two compositions, because it's so much easier for Tabasco to come in to counter gank compared to setting up for a dive, for example, if from Nerv. And when you compare Ezreal versus Ashe, it's so much easier for Ashe to just keep the wave pushed underneath the turret, and that's why they've just been allowed to do that. You know, it's so much easier for them to just keep this pressure up. And then Tabasco's always there to provide the support should he need it. And during the early levels, yes, he wasn't there when his team really needed him, but he's certainly compensated for that moving into the later stages of the game.
Oh yeah, and now everybody is on the Infernal Drake here. You can see Nerv have brought 4 members to the party. The wave comes in. Will it be enough time? In comes Tabasco. He's going to be able to finish Memento off. That's a free smite for him if he doesn't go down, but he does. And now Nerv on the offensive, trying to push Sevex back, separating him from the rest of the team. But the Dragon's going to be finished, secured by Delord. That is a second Infernal now, and if they can get out with their lives, they can count themselves lucky. Double flashes outside the bubble. Delord, though, is trying to get out of harm's way. He burns his as well. There's still a tower, but it is low. In comes the dredge line. Ruin is looking to not let this one go at all, and he pops up Delord. Not enough damage. Achu wants to finish this, but Achu himself is quite low, and Sevex turns back in, finding Suno, taking him down, and now the Realm Warp. He's coming in solo, and they've cut off Achu. Nowhere to go. Twisted advance, and Ice Beasto picks the kill.
Nerv tried so hard to force that play after it went so horribly wrong. They overcommit and Team Kinguin punish. They get so many kills on the board. They get themselves a second Infernal Drake, and they're likely going to get themselves a tier 1 turret in the bottom lane as well. Things have just gone so right for Team Kinguin.
Nerv have not dropped a game in the entire CS qualifier, but it is looking like they are going to in this first game of the best of 5. Teleport comes in, but it's going to be immediately canceled. Ruin's not going to have access to that for a few minutes. 22 minutes into this game, almost dead even on gold, and Team Kinguin are looking good. Let's see this again.
So Nerv wants to start off the Dragon once again. This time they do have 4 members. Notice that the Nautilus is still in the mid lane. He's being distracted by Sevex, and that means that there's no frontline tank, which makes it easy to shut down Memento. But given that Tabasco, he has a squishy build, he is quickly disposed of by Suna as well. Now the Dragon was secured by Delord. Good job there from him. But then this is where Team Kinguin, they just want to disengage. They don't want to keep the fight up. Sebex is cut off to the side, and so you just see flash after flash after flash. And at this point, Nerv should disengage. They land one hook, and Ice Bistro is such a good player here, because notice how he's always body blocking for Delord, and the moment Suno overextends, he ends up getting punished for it. Really good teamwork coming out from Team Kinguin. The Realm Walk comes out just to zone off Achu. He has no options left available to him. And then Team Kinguin get themselves, I believe, 3 kills to 1, as well as the Infernal Drake.
I like how Delord hung around just to look tasty, though, at the end. That's okay. I've only got a couple hundred HP. You can't get me. Woolite's going to be able to finish off the tower. True Shot comes too late. So Team Kinguin find themselves with 2 towers, 2 Infernal Dragons, and a gold lead. Very slim, but they've got it.
Yeah. And they have so much more control over the map. Yes, they ended up losing that top tier 1, but they've taken the bottom. They've taken the mid, and now all they can do is they can actually just send their Maokai to the bottom lane. He can just keep soaking up this farming, and then the Ashe Syra can just continue the pressure up top lane and basically continue their clear of all these tier 1 turrets. Now Sebex, it looks like he's posturing around to pick up that blue buff. Oh, actually, they've decided to move into a side lane. So yeah, this is the alternative that you could do. Rather than send your bottom lane up there, you can send your bottom lane to the mid. Given that the lanes will hit there faster, you give a little bit more experience to your AD carry, which is always a valuable thing to do, especially when you look at your Sebex being level 15 right now. Actually, I think that's the highest level in the game. 200 Rise. Already completed his Roa and Abyssal. Oh man, this Rise is an absolute terror right now.
He's still stacking that tier up, you know. I mean, this is starting to get real rough. We talked about Suno having a fair amount of burst damage, but Sebex is really doing some work right now. And I would not want to be caught in the side lane against that Rise. So all of Nerv kind of hanging around towards this top side, making sure they have vision around the Baron pit. Sebex picks up the blue. He's spotted on that ward. But Kinguin are the ones really controlling the pace of this game here. And since they have the late game, since they have the scaling, they're comfortable.
So what Nerv are expecting is that Sebex is going to come up to the side lane and start pushing towards that turret. So they're going to try and punish that by either waiting for someone to walk into this brush or kill Sebex.
Oh, Tabasco. Okay, there's the wave. Delord is going to get popped. Tabasco might fall as well. Isolation, the double damage to the party portal. Sebex is out.
There we are. Really good stuff coming out from Nerv. They expected the play, they acted accordingly, and honestly, just a bit of a questionable decision from Delord overall, because he even saw Tabasco check the brush initially and still face checked it. It ended up giving away his life, but look at Woolite.
Yeah, Woolite, he's caught out as well. He almost took Achu down with him, but Sebex now, the power's unleashed on him, but he's running real fast. And that is going to make Nerv rethink this Baron. There is a teleport, however, coming in, and now they've got enough chance to push it forward. Achu, he could go down, cannot trade with that Rise, but they are back on Baron right now. The teleport from Ruin means 5 members here, but Ice Bisto is tossing saplings, and he takes down Achu with the help from Baron. Memento hopping, but Sebex picks him off now, and Nerv are just caught between a Baron and a few members of Team Kinguin. They cannot finish the Rise. Ice Bisto picks up Suno. Sebex is still alive! He's got the shields, and he's just walking away. Are you kidding me here?
2 versus 5 with a little bit of help from Baron is enough to keep Team Kinguin from stopping that play, and they still want more.
And Delord is back. He's going to throw up the Stranglethorns. In comes Memento. Finishes off Cost. They've got Ruin. They've got the tower. Double kill for the Nocturne, and they might turn for Baron themselves. That's an ace.
This is an ace for Team Kinguin. Things just went horribly wrong for them after they lose 2 members. The ultimate was forced out of Sebex, and there should have been no real way for Team Kinguin to come back from that, but the fact that Nerv, they were hesitant, they couldn't decide to commit for the Baron, they couldn't decide whether or not they wanted to kill Sebex, and now they've thrown everything away, and Team Kinguin are going to get themselves the first Baron of the game.
It is only game 1. We have a long series ahead of us, Vedius, but you need to be able to keep your composure in mission-critical situations like that. You need to be on the same page. Nerv did not have that. That allowed Team Kinguin to pick up this Baron, to pick up that ace, and they find themselves with 4,000 gold in the lead and another dragon spawning in 15 seconds. And would you know it, it's Infernal.
But it's also just Ruin taking so long to get into these fights, because if Ruin had been tanking the Baron from the start, then perhaps they would have been in a better position to set up for that play. But because Memento had taken a lot of damage, changing aggro with all the other members who had already chunked them out, and it just made things easy for this Rise to just keep poking them down and buy time for Ice Beaster to come in. Now with the teleport down and Ruin's still not there, trying to start this dragon I think is super risky.
They're going to send the Ashe Arrow. Achu is not going to get hit, but Suno does. Ice Bisto jumping in, and he's on the Maelstrom. Ruin is trying to distract 4 members, but look at Ice Bisto. He is just following up, and Sebex is going to be pumping out that damage. And they're just popping people left, right, and center. Ice Bisto gets himself hopped over the wall, but that is the job they wanted. They get themselves a third Infernal, count 'em, 28 minutes, 24% AD and AP, and Achu is all by himself trying to run back to tower. Team Kinguin show no signs of letting up the pressure.
The third time in a row that Ruin has not been there at the start of the fight, and Achu gets caught.
And Paranoia, Achu's gone, Daylord gets the kill credit. Well deserved as he set that one up for Tabasco, and now it's onto inhibitor turrets. And Momento's just pushing mid lane.
I mean, at this point, there are very few options left available to them. 5 members strong, massive minion wave, all Baron empowered, but Team Kinguin, they're going to play it safe. They're not going to make the same mistakes that Nerv did, and they're just going to walk away with an inhibitor. And I mean, things are looking dire for Nerv. You already talked about it. They haven't lost a game for the qualifiers, but it looks like that right now. And this is how things started to go abysmally wrong. Look at how much damage Sebex was able to do, and look at how much damage they took before Ruin even gets to the inhibitor. This just makes it easy for Ice Beasto to come in from the flank. He realizes the AD carry is gone. All these flashes have just been burnt, and Sebex has just done a beautiful job of kiting. Such a smart flash from Ice Beasto there, because he realized that Sebex was going to be the target focus for Ruin, and if he had been CC'd, then it would have been so easy for Suno to just turn around and drop his entire combo down onto him. But because Ice Beasto was on his face, it distracted him, it changed his focus priority, and that enabled the Rise to get the turnaround, get the shield, and they're able to get themselves the ace. And I mean, just really impressive stuff, and they've caught another member. Oh, Sebex!
Sebex, okay. Well, he didn't get out that time. He looked really impressive in the replay. Give him credit there, but he's down now. So
he's allowed one mistake.
We'll give it to him. That was his first death of the game, you know, not exactly #1 feeder.
Yeah, exactly. So Sebex a little bit out of position, trying to get some vision around the Baron area. Ends up getting punished for it. But nevertheless, still, Team Kinguin looking very strong right now. Notice that they have completed a pretty significant number of item purchases. That Ashe, who was struggling very hard in the early game, now has his 3 items, which means that his damage output is going to be absolutely phenomenal. Rise as well has now got the fully stacked tier into the Archangel Staff. Void Staff completed as well. Things just look so good for the side of Team Kinguin.
I'm glad you mentioned Woolite as well, completing those items, because we talked about at the beginning of the game, the real question was going to be, is Woolite going to be able to avoid, you know, pulling those mistakes that have become characteristic of him in the past? Apart from the first laning mistake, honestly, he has not played like that. We've seen him from the back launching these arrows as he is. Unfortunately, not connecting the arrows onto Ruin, who teleports back down to the bottom side, but he's still been letting Tabasco go in, letting Ice Beasto go in. So credit to Woolite for, you know, playing his role well this time around, and it's a big part of why they're ahead.
Well, we have to bear in mind that the early game definitely hurt him. That wasn't necessarily his fault, given that he was just trying to help out his jungler with the pull, but because of how obvious the decision was, Nerv saw the opportunity and tried their hardest to punish it. But I think it was smart from Team Kinguin to also realize, look guys, it doesn't matter if we struggle really hard in the early game, as long as it doesn't snowball out of control. This is something that we discussed a lot during the early game about this fantastic scaling that Team Kinguin have. And in all honesty, it's just Nerv trying to force a lot of opportunities, like just not very well.
Yeah, well, they are going to get the knock up onto Woolite. True shot. Barrage comes in, but there's a teleport. They don't have quite enough burst, but do they? Suno unleashes the power on Woolite, and they've melted him just like that. But now Tabasco might be falling next. Ice Beasto's locked up on Shu. He has the damage to burst him down. A double kill for Sebex, and now it is anybody's fight, but Sebex looks to be the X factor in the 2v3. Memento flashing away. Ruin and Koss have nothing left in the tank, and Sebex just keeps putting him in prison over and over and over again. Sebex with another kill on a spree as they look to charge down mid.
So Ruin in his dying breath was able to get a stun down onto Sebex so that he couldn't get the teleport to where Koss was. He keeps his support alive, but I don't know if it's going to be enough when you look at the massive minion wave in the bottom lane that Memento has to deal with. 2 members still up for Team Kinguin should enable them to get their second inhibitor of the game, and they are just knocking on the doors of the Nexus for Team Nerv and delivering them potentially their first loss of the qualifier.
These are the 2 beefiest members right here. It is so hard to kill Sebex through those shields. Ice Beasto has been absolutely massive. Memento has the damage. Koss is not able to keep it up, but it was all they could do to clear off super minions from their Nexus at this point. 32 minutes into this game, and Kinguin are really punishing.
So, the big thing, so we'll get onto that in a second because look at the replay. This is another time, but this time Ruin was actually there at the start of the fight. They actually land their CC very well to lock down Woolite. Suno burning his flash here to get that kill would likely just guarantee his death, but then things are looking pretty promising. The problem you have is Sebex on Rise. Level 17, walks up, takes off all of Woolite's health with a single Q. You saw that 1,000 damage proc coming out from his Q, and it was just absolutely insane with the amount of damage output that he can deal with now. And you can see that last bit of stun to interrupt the teleport does keep Cast alive. As we now see another pick.
Oh, I like that. Arrow right into the darkness. Tabasco picks up. Suno Memento is going to follow suit and equalize on that one, but even with the wave coming out, it's not enough to stop Sebex. And wave, goodbye to your life. It looks like Koss is going nowhere. Or is he? He gets himself out of harm's way with Mikhails, but doesn't matter. Sebex is still able to finish him off, and they're diving right behind towers. Do not even care at this point as they continue to clear through these mini waves. Achu and Ruin, it's all they can do to keep things pushed back, but even with the inhibitor coming back up, there's still minions there. And Team Kinguin are marching into the base.
Now have a look at the death time. It's 20 seconds still on Suno. If they can grab this inhibitor, there's a pretty big minion wave in the mid that Team Kinguin could look to try and close out the game with.
They may not even need the inhibitor right now. They actually realize that there are Nexus turrets bare for a moment. Ruin and Achu are trying to hold this line, but even as low as Sebex, an Ice Beasto, and Delord are, it doesn't matter. Redemption comes in, a counter redemption. The damage just isn't quite there enough, and Ruin's gonna go down. Woolite picks him up. The last Nexus turret falls, and they are shredding through the Nexus. Desperate charge, but it won't be enough. Team Kinguin with game number 1.
Pretty good stuff coming out from Team Kinguin. We talked about it during the draft. Well, personally, I felt that they did come out ahead during the draft phase, but then
surprising, considering how they got here. It wasn't as impressive of a run as Nerv had.
Oh, I feel like that a lot of Nerv's success has been off the back of Memento and his early jungle pressure. And we saw again, at the very start of this game, his jungle pressure was a large part of what gave Nerv that lead, setting up so many ganks in the bottom lane, getting those kills, not only onto him, but also onto Achu, enabled them to have a pretty, well, they got that 2,000 gold lead in the early game, but due to their lack of engage, due to their real way to set up any kind of plays, limited what they could do with that gold lead. And that is what allowed Team Kinguin to slowly, over time, come back into it. They used the pick comp that they had built to find targets slightly out of position, catch Nerv off guard, and they were able to deliver them the first loss of the Challenger qualifiers. And honestly, I just have to give props to Team Kinguin. And not only did they have a great draft, they utilized their composition well, but they also just, so many small individual outplays that they were able to make was just really impressive. Beastio in particular, like he played so well on that Maokai consistently throughout that game.
He was locking down every carry, time and time and time again. It was really impressive, and considering how far wonky the laning phase seemed to go, we focused very heavily on the bottom side. Admittedly, it was pretty even in the other two lanes. But yeah, I mean, you've really got to give some massive credit to him. I think Tabasco played incredibly well once he was up to speed, once he was 7 or 8 level. He started really getting involved in the counter ganks and, kind of utilizing the knowledge that Memento was going to be hanging around there quite a lot. And it really all started turning when they were able to pick up some Drakes. So big credit for them. Team Kinguin have taken game number 1. We got a series. Well, we always going to have a series. Somebody was going to win, right? But point is, coming into this, Nerv hadn't lost one. So, this is it's really a big result. Kind of a shocker.
Yeah, but with that, that is going to be game 1 going over to Team Kinguin, so congratulations there. But this still is a best of 5, so we have a long way to go.
Absolutely. Well, when we come back, we're going to see if Nerv can bring it after the break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Woolite is playing hyper-aggressive.
Still baiting, but Koss is a little bit low. The bubble doesn't land. Memento is a little bit occupied on Krugs, but now he's going to have to hop in. Daylord, 1 auto, first blood, looking for Woolite, flashes out. Here is a big arrow that goes nowhere, but the wave comes on in. Daylord looks like to be the targeted choice. Memento and Suno running for their lives as Tabasco is going to claim 1. The wave comes in. Will it be enough time? In comes Tabasco. He's going to be able to finish Memento off. That's a free smite for him if he doesn't go down, but he does. And now Nerv on the offensive, and Sebex just keeps putting him in prison over and over and over again. Sebex with another kill. The damage just isn't quite there enough, and Ruin's gonna go down. Woolite picks him up. The last Nexus turret falls, and they are shredding through the Nexus. Desperate charge, but it won't be enough. Team Kinguin with game number 1.